Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Friday, August 22nd. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. Appreciate all of those tuning in. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we have another installment of our New York Jets player preview series. You know the drill. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the podcast throughout training camp and the preseason, we take a look at two New York Jets, one on the offensive side of the football and the other on the defensive side of the football. And today we are going to look at the two cornerstones for this New York Jets team, taking a look at Garrett Wilson to open up today's podcast on offense, and then we'll take a look at Sauce Gardner on defense a little bit later on in today's episode. This is the second to last player preview. The final one will be on Monday, so stay tuned for that. But excited for today's episode because we are breaking down the freshly extended young stars for the New York Jets and Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. The two of these guys will go at it for the next 6 years. Cornerstone pieces, fired up to dive into this one today, and always fired up to dive into this player preview. Love putting Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner together. They're the two cornerstone pieces, go up against each other every single day in practice. This is easily one of my favorite player preview episodes to do every single year here on the podcast. And with the fresh extensions, we'll be doing these two players for a very long time. We'll start here as we always do on offense, and that is starting with Garrett Wilson, entering year 4 at 25 years old, 6 foot, 183 pounds. Of course, the first round, 10th overall pick by the Jets in that historic 2022 draft class, took home Rookie of the Year honors on the offensive side of the football. Of course, selected out of Ohio State. And this year, this summer, back in July, right before training camp begin, Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, and this new regime locked up Garrett Wilson to a 4-year, $130 million contract, which is $32.5 million per year. And it also includes $90 million guaranteed. It is the first time in NFL history that a wide receiver received an average of $31 million over 3 seasons. This now keeps Garrett Wilson under contract for the next 6 seasons. So his age 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 seasons will be spent with the New York Jets. It's the prime of his career, and it's a breath of fresh air to finally have the New York Jets get in front of these contracts, get this Garrett Wilson extension done well before training camp, and obviously well before the regular season when this move was made. For so many of the years, the Jets have been late. For so many of the years, the Jets have left the young talent, let them go, or they just haven't had the young talent at times to pay. This wasn't the case. Garrett Wilson's a young star, not just a young star. He's a star at this point just in general, but a cornerstone piece that you lock up and you needed to lock up. Some other numbers for this contract. It was the $32.5 million per year is the 5th highest in the NFL. And why it was so big for the Jets to get ahead of this as opposed to waiting is this is a contract, and we'll say the same for Sauce Gardner later on, that in a couple years from now, this should look like a bargain. And it will look like a bargain. As a matter of fact, there's a good chance we're sitting here this time next year looking at this Garrett Wilson contract, and it's not even close to the top 5 in football, especially over the next 2 seasons when a lot of these other receivers are going to get paid and the salary cap is always going up. This is a contract with the Jets getting ahead of it paying him after just 3 years is going to look like a bargain very, very shortly. He's behind Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, just ahead of A.J. Brown, who's making $32 million. And he's the first Jets first-round pick to be extended after his third season. Of course, Sauce became the second when he also signed an extension. So those are just some of the contract stuff to refresh you here with the Garrett Wilson extension this offseason. A well-deserved extension, a very smart extension. And having Garrett Wilson here long-term is massive for this team, not only for this year and whatever happens with Justin Fields in this Jets offense, but moving forward, if the New York Jets do end up selecting a quarterback in the 2026 draft class, it is massive for him to already have a number one receiver the minute he walks into the building. This is massive for so many reasons, to have a number one receiver, to have a cornerstone piece for this new regime, to have a piece like Garrett Wilson, a leader on and off the field, an example in that locker room. Everything you want in a star player, Garrett Wilson brings it to the table. When you look at his numbers last season, 17 games played, 101 receptions, which was tied for 7th in the NFL, 1,104 yards, 14th in the NFL, 10.9 yards per reception and 7 touchdowns, tied for 21st. His career numbers, he's played all 51 games. One of the more important areas of Garrett Wilson's game so far, not just the performance on the field, but the durability. 3 seasons, he's played all 51 games. 279 receptions on 469 targets, 3,249 yards, 11.6 yards per reception, and 14 touchdowns. He's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons in each of his 3 seasons. The receptions have gone up in each of the 3 seasons. Last time was the first time he hit over 100. And what's crazy about Garrett Wilson, and we'll project as to what he can do this year and moving forward and how he can hit another level. But what's so impressive about Garrett Wilson and what he's been able to do for this New York Jets team is go out there consistently week in and week out and produce, considering all of the outside factors that have happened. This is a player that has gone through 3 offensive play callers. Mike LaFleur in his rookie season, Nathaniel Hackett in his second season, and then last year, partially Nathaniel Hackett, then changed to Todd Downing. Just terrible, terrible coaching staffs he's been under, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Plus, the 7 different quarterbacks that he has caught passes from. Year 1, year 2, year 3, some of the likes of Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Joe Flacco in his first NFL game. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the different quarterbacks that he has caught passes from, on top of the different coordinators. And through all of that, he has been one of the most consistent, he has been the most consistent player on this offense with these 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons and the consistent production. That in itself is so impressive. And you can only hope that soon here the Jets find their answer at quarterback, franchise quarterback, because Garrett Wilson deserves that through everything that he's been through. He's the first Jet since George Sawyer to have 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's the first Jets player in franchise history to record that mark in his first 3 NFL seasons. And going back to the last Jet to record 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, you'd have to go all the way back to 1966 through the 1968 season. Garrett has also made himself the 5th player in NFL history to record 1,000 yards and 80-plus receptions in each of his first 3 seasons. Some really good company, some really good numbers. You watch him play, he backs it up. His ability, just from route running, making guys miss, well-rounded, does so many things well. And you still now, when you look at Garrett Wilson and what he can do this year and moving forward, this is a guy that you hope he still has another level to hit, right? Garrett Wilson so far has been a slightly above 1,000-yard receiver to 1,100 yards last year. The next step for Garrett Wilson is going out there and having that 1,300, 1,400-yard season, right? Going out there and finding the end zone a little bit more. He's only had 14 touchdowns in 3 seasons. 7 of those came last year. His first 2 seasons, he had 7 combined, 4 in 2022 and 3 in 2023. The next step is 1,300, 1,400 yards in a well-run offense where he can rack up those type of yards, rack up a high number of receptions, 100 plus, and then look at the touchdowns as well, being utilized more in the red zone at times, but just in general, finding the end zone in more opportunities where you see more of those consistent 7 to 8 to 9, 10 potentially touchdown type of seasons, which is what you saw last year, finding the end zone a little bit more. That's now the next step for Garrett Wilson. The bar is there with the consistency. Next step is now reaching it. And one area of Garrett Wilson's game, and there's a lot of questions, of course, about Justin Fields and what he can do, and especially from a deep ball perspective. How much can the Jets stretch the field? Are they going to be able to stretch the field? One thing that I do think is interesting, and you hope the Jets are able to stretch the field and have success deep. And one thing that is interesting now, Garrett Wilson pairing up with his college teammate, rekindling hopefully some of that chemistry that they had at Ohio State. When you look at Garrett Wilson in his career on deep catches, deep targets, he's had 65 deep targets in his career. He's only caught 19 of them. But the funny part is when you look at that and you see that's a 29% catch rate, you think there's got to be a lot of drops in there. But out of those 65 targets, he hasn't had one drop. A lot of it's been bad quarterback play, bad passes. It hasn't been on Garrett. One thing Fields brings, and you look at the deep ball and hopefully the Jets' ability to stretch the field here, is in 2023, Fields ranked 6th best in the NFL with a 53.8% adjusted completion percentage on deep passes. That year, his number one guy, DJ Moore, had caught 16 of 32 deep targets for 482 yards and 5 touchdowns. You hope that arm from Justin Fields, going back to his college days with Garrett Wilson, rekindling some of that chemistry, we can see that impact on Garrett this year and help him take himself to another level. That's the next step. This is a guy who has already implemented himself top 15 receiver. Now it's about top 10, top 7. Put yourself in that elite conversation. But Garrett's just such an awesome player. It's also so great with both of these players, Garrett and Sauce. You're able to buy their jerseys now. You're able to give the fan base the ability to buy these guys' jerseys without having to worry about, right, them being traded, them being released, them not being here long-term. No, they're here long-term. They're locked up. What he does on the field, he's even better off the field. He brings so much good to the table. He was no doubt, right? There were certainly some questions about Sauce and the extension. Garrett Wilson, no doubt, 100% of people were on board. They got it done, and I'm fired up to see what he could do this year. So that's Garrett Wilson. Now we move on to Sauce Gardner, who is also entering year 4, of course. 2022 first-round pick, 4th overall. 6'3", 190 pounds. Selected, of course, by the New York Jets. Your 2022 Defensive Rookie of the Year out of Cincinnati. He'll be 25 when week 1 rolls around. So similar to Garrett, you look at Sauce's contract, and you'll have him for the 25, 26, 28, or 27, 28, 29, and age 30 seasons. So over the next 6 seasons. And when you just break down Sauce and Garrett's contracts in general, since they don't essentially kick in for 2 more years, Garrett, because they both play under the 5th-year option, Garrett's deal essentially is a 6-year, $150.3 million deal, which is $25.05 million per year. And Sauce is a 6-year, $151.23 million deal, which is about $25.205 million per year. So much more favorable when you even look at it from that perspective. But Sauce, similar to Garrett, This is a contract that you expect looks like a bargain in a year or two. Where, yes, he's the top paid cornerback right now, but with the salary cap continuing to go up and other cornerbacks going to look for their money, Sauce is going to look like, if he continues to play at his level and get back on track after a bumpy year last year, it's going to look like a bargain. And it should. And I expect that. Now, his contract was 4 years, $120.4 million, $30.1 million per year, $85.6 million in guaranteed. So makes $0.1 million more than Derek Stingley to become the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Some of the guys that are behind him: Derek Stingley, J.C. Horn, Jalen Ramsey, Pat Surtain. I think it just shows you, too, Pat Surtain, it felt like just yesterday he was the highest paid cornerback. And now you already look at it, and he is number 5 on that list. Feels like that could be the same here for Sauce. Another reason to credit Darren Muji and his front office for getting ahead of it, like they did with Garrett Wilson, as opposed to waiting. And Sauce Gardner is interesting because last season he had a bit of a down year for his standards. There's no doubt about it. But you do have to bring up the point of, for his standards. When you look at his season last year, while it was down from his all-pro seasons that he put up in 2022 and 2023, his season last year was still one of the better seasons in the NFL by a cornerback. Sauce Gardner's down year would be a lot of cornerbacks' best seasons. That's how good he's been. That's how high the bar has been set for Sauce Gardner. I get the tackling was an issue, and that has to be better. And Glenn has talked about working on that. He's got to be able to force more turnovers. And you hope Sauce Gardner can force more turnovers and get himself more interceptions. That's the next step for his game. There is still things to improve there. But there were so many people last year and so many people going into this offseason that didn't want to pay Sauce and were so down on him going out of last year. But when you look at last season, it wasn't even that bad. All right, let's take a look at last season. 15 games played, 49 tackles, 1 interception, 9 passes defended. Here are the more important numbers, though. He had 12 forced incompletions, 6th in the NFL. 9.4 snaps per target, 6th in the NFL. 17.7 snaps per reception, 2nd in the NFL. His 25 catches allowed was 1st. That was the least amount of catches allowed among all cornerbacks last year in a down year. He was also targeted the 2nd fewest times in the NFL, and his catch rate against ranked 6th in the NFL. He was easily still a top 6 to top 5 cornerback, even in a down year. And now for Sauce, and I've said this many times, and I said this in the Breece Hall player preview on Wednesday. Breece Hall is a player that I think, one of the players that is going to benefit the most from this coaching staff is Breece, and the way they're going to run the football and the way they're going to use him in the receiving game. There's a couple players that you kind of list as who could benefit the most. Sauce Gardner's right in that boat of who could benefit the most from this Jets defense and how much blitzing they're going to do and how much how much man coverage they are going to run. And Aaron Glenn's background of a cornerback and some of his ball hawking ability. And how he can use some of that and put some of that knowledge and help develop Sauce, where his ball hawking and his interception ability can jump up. Because look, the reality is for Sauce, he's only had 3 interceptions in his career in 48 games. You do want to see the interceptions go up. The interceptions aren't an end-all be-all, but you do want to see him go up because it's another tool added to his repertoire. And that's another key piece for a corner. Another key piece for a corner is also being able to stop the run. Sauce last season struggled with that. He struggled with tackling. That's got to be better. No doubt about it. But when you look at Glenn and you look at the usage of man coverage this season, it should be significantly more than what the Jets have ran under Robert Saleh. During 2024, the Lions ranked 5th in the NFL in man coverage. The Jets use man 17th in the NFL. Outside of the on the bottom half of the league in man coverage, while the Lions ranked in the top 5. When you look at Sauce and what he's able to do in man coverage, Glenn talks about it all the time, your press man corners. That's what Sauce does best. He's been elite. Since entering the league in 2022, he's allowed the best yards allowed per coverage snaps and target in the NFL. He also ranks third best in passer rating allowed while in man coverage since entering the league. So my point is, Sauce is lining up here to have a big bounce back season, not just because of one down year, and I think he's going to be able to be back, but more importantly, what the Jets are going to do on defense fits into exactly what Sauce Gardner's good at, and that's man coverage. That's press man. That's being physical, using his long arms, using his length to his advantage to break up passes and hopefully put himself in a position to haul in more interceptions. We can't just ignore that this guy was a back-to-back All-Pro in 2022 and 2023. He had he wasn't the best cornerback in the NFL last year, so let's write him off already? It's complete nonsense. Let me give you some more numbers. Since Sauce Gardner has entered the league in 2022, not only is the only cornerback in the NFL history to make back-to-back first-team All-Pros, but let's throw some other numbers out there and show you where he ranks. His 90.7 overall grade is first. His 85.4 coverage grade, first. His 43 forced incompletions, tied for first. His 50.9% completion percentage allowed, first. 1.8 receptions per game, first. 21 yards per game, first. 0.58 yards per snap, first. 18.1 pass breakup to target percentage, first. And the 67.5 passer rating against, as I mentioned, third. First. Long list of leading the league. He's been unbelievable. He's an elite cornerback. He's still a top 5 to top 3 cornerback in the NFL. And I also do think better coaching staff, better situation. I think Sauce was hurt last year by everything that happened. I do. Certain players are. I think he was pretty damaged from everything that took place last year on and off the field. With the coaching change, the terrible coaching, the bad culture, I think it got to him. But now you have a new coaching staff, a coach who played the position he played, a defensive scheme that is going to fit into what he wants to do, or if not what he wants to do, what he does well with the man coverage. And I think you look at Sauce this year, he should be back to being an All-Pro. He should be. Tackling should be better. Glenn has preached that. And the coverage ability is still there. I expect a massive bounce-back season, and I'm not afraid to say it. Sauce Gardner will be an All-Pro again this year. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. Last season's, to me, his struggles last year were way too overblown. Out of all the issues last year, to just nitpick Sauce, when you actually break it down and peel back the cover, he was the furthest thing from the Jets' issues last season. And I expect a big year this year. So that's Sauce Gardner. And let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner entering the 2025 season? What are your expectations for both of these players and any other Jets takes you got? Let me know down below. Appreciate your support. As always, we will have one more player preview up on Monday, so stay tuned for that. It's a good one, so keep an eye out. Obviously, a lot more content coming your way as well, so appreciate you all so much. Until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.